Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Everybody's here. I'm excited to have these folks in with us today. They've been here before. They're from the Allegheny Institute for Public Policy, and I've got Frank Gamrat, got that, and Eric Montari. Close enough. Those Irish names.
We'll pronounce them for everybody when we're up.
Okay. Anyway, they're going to give us kind of a briefing and an update of what's going on in Allegheny County. So I'm going to turn it over to them. Frank, Eric.
Thank you, Mark. And I'm Eric Montari. No, I'm just kidding. It's good to see everybody again. How's everybody today? Great. Everybody hear me okay? Awesome. Everybody knows Allegheny County's been sued, correct? Yes? Do you know by who?
No.
Okay. Pittsburgh Public Schools on April 8th filed a lawsuit in Allegheny County Common Pleas Court asking a judge to order a countywide reassessment because the base year is 2012. There's been a lot of appeals, especially of commercial property, which Frank is going to discuss a little bit later. The lawsuit alleges that the way that the values now in the base year exist because of appeals and changes, that no longer is the uniformity clause of the Pennsylvania Constitution satisfied in Allegheny County. And because of the commercial appeals, more of the tax burden is going to fall on the residential property countywide. So, as of now, as we sit here today, the lawsuit has been filed. That was the complaint that was filed April 8th by Pittsburgh Public Schools. No other taxing body has joined the lawsuit yet. They're allowed to, but nobody has. The county has responded in as much as they said, we acknowledge that we've been sued, and they entered 2 names of assistant solicitors into the court record, meaning most likely they're gonna fight it. Doesn't necessarily mean, there could be a settlement, who knows, because there's 2 other counties out east, Lackawanna County and Schuylkill County. Both of them were sued, but it never got to the point where the judge was able to render a decision because both counties just said that they would reassess. Now, those counties, Lackawanna County has not done a reassessment since 1968, and Schuylkill County, I think, did one in 2010. So they both have older base years than Allegheny County. Most of the news coverage you've probably been seeing over the past couple months has been about the appeals, the skyscrapers winning big appeals, homeowners winning big appeals. That's based on the common level ratio, and that ratio is a figure that's produced every year for every county in Pennsylvania. And it's a ratio that looks at sales that happen that are actual arm's length transaction sales in each county and compares them to the assessed values. They put them together, they throw out the outliers, and they come up with a number. So right now, for this year that's gonna start, it goes July to June, just like the state's fiscal year, the common level ratio in Allegheny County is gonna be 52.5%. So someone who could go in and prove that their market value is lower than it should be based on the assessment, and then the common level ratio is applied to it, then the new assessed value is produced. Okay, does everybody understand that okay? That's what happens just in an appeal. Even though the common level ratio is produced every year, if you don't appeal or you're not involved in the appeal process, it really doesn't pertain to you. Okay, it gives you a general idea of how far the market values have climbed compared to the assessments, and every year that the base year stays in place, the common level ratio typically falls. With a county with a lot of sales activity like Allegheny County, that's why it has fallen. And in addition, there was a lawsuit over how much, yes, now we're gonna ask about, yes sir, about the county submitting data to the state that inflated the number. That court case is still pending at Commonwealth Court. It's still active because there is something like an administrative order and an administrative judge that has to rule on what exactly happened. But suffice it to say that that common level ratio about 4 years ago was in the 87% range, and then after the lawsuit it was knocked down to 63, then 54, and now it's at 52. So that's the first thing that's going on, is the county is being sued. If it goes like the last time, it could go all the way to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which means we could be looking at 2, 3, 4 years of litigation, okay? If the thing gets settled and they don't even fight the lawsuit, something will happen a lot quicker, meaning probably the county's just gonna go forward with a reassessment, hire a contractor, go out and do the process. They might take it through common pleas court and lose, and then say, well, we've had enough, we're not gonna win a Commonwealth Court or Supreme Court, let's just be done with it. We don't know at this point, but that's what's happening, is that one taxing body in the county has sued the county and has asked the judge to force a reassessment. In the meantime, we also have county council, which is the policy-making body for the county. And they've been doing a lot of things with assessment policy. Right now in the ordinances, all the language applies to the previous reassessment, which was 2012, also a court-ordered reassessment. There's language in there about how long the appeals could take, when you had to file them by, the revisement of the certified roll, on and on, the duties of the chief assessment officer. So now, because of the lawsuit and because of the common level ratio, the number of appeals, county council has done a lot of things in the last couple months in terms of things that they've proposed, things that they've passed, the executive has signed, things that they've passed the executive hasn't signed. So I just want to run down that real quick. And just to summarize, and if you didn't get the handout in the back, that's fine, we'll get them to you. It has a good summary of everything that's been going on in the county with this legislation. So the first thing is, there is an actual ordinance right now that's been proposed, that's in committee, that would call for periodic countywide reassessments in Allegheny County. If, this is a big if, there's 2 statistical measures that would have to fall out of an acceptable range, and then the state would certify these numbers and say, now the assessments are not uniform and they violate the uniformity clause, you must do a reassessment, a computer-aided mass reappraisal. That means, again, hiring a contractor, going out door to door, handing out the surveys like they did in 2009 and 2010 to say how many bedrooms do you have, how many bathrooms, all that sort of stuff, and then an appeal period afterwards. There's also requirements in there for the chief assessment officer and his or her role in the assessment process, because getting back to this original lawsuit from 2018 and 2019 about did the county indeed falsify data that went to the state, now there's going to be requirements on the chief assessment officer about certifying the data and making sure that everything that goes to Harrisburg has their signature on it and reports to council and reports to the executive and reports to the county manager. So you can see this is going to be a lot more cumbersome, but it's also a lot more detailed because it's a very important process. It's a very important function that the county has to carry out. Every county in Pennsylvania has to carry out, but again, because the state law says you can have a base year, you have counties north of here that haven't done one since the 60s, you have counties south of here that have been sued and did one in 2017, counties right now that haven't done them since the 1970s but are ongoing without a lawsuit. The other thing that's going to change, this did pass by council. It's in front of the executive now. We're not sure if she's going to sign it or veto it or let it become law without her signature, is to change the appeals period. Now, Allegheny County is the only county in the state where the appeals period closes in the spring. It begins January 1 It ends March 31st unless that falls on a weekend or a holiday, and then it goes to April 1st. No joke, seriously. Every other county, it's the fall, September, October. The proposal that came out of county council that had a hearing in committee, it passed the council this past meeting, and is there waiting for the executive's decision, is to move the appeal period when there's not a reassessment to October 1st. Okay? So if that passes, right now for this year, that'll go into effect. That you'll start to hear about appeals now, the newspaper coverage about who's appealing, who won, who lost, that sort of stuff will happen by October 1st. The reason they're doing it is they want to add predictability to, if there's going to be a loss, what can the taxing bodies budget for? Now that makes sense for a lot of the taxing bodies in the county. The county, the city of Pittsburgh, every single municipality, and Pittsburgh Public Schools all budget beginning January 1 and end December 31st. Right now, your school districts, every other one except for Pittsburgh Public Schools, is making their decisions. So again, you're probably seeing newspaper coverage. Oh, I saw a couple articles. Quaker Valley, Hampton, Fox Chapel, Allegheny Valley, what they're doing for their taxing decisions now. So that's going to change if this becomes law, that you will now have an appeals period that's going to be filed by October 1st of 2024 for 2025. Every other year following, if there is not a reassessment, it'll be September 1st. Doesn't say when the appeals period is going to begin. It might begin January. Not really sure, but all we know is now, because we're at the end of June or middle of June right now, if it goes into effect sometime soon, they will say you have to have your appeals filed and you have to have them by October 1st. The other things the council has passed, the executive has signed, is they changed some of the requirements for the people who sit on the appeals board. Most of these people already have qualifications that are written into the state law and in the code of ordinances, like you have to have real estate professionals, you have the people who are familiar with appraising property, you have to go to periodic training. They added some things for some of the other members on the appeals board that if they don't meet those qualifications, now they're going to have to go and get them. Another thing that's been passed by council, was returned by the executive, but is now law because she didn't sign it, is the county council will be the people who now confirm the chief assessment officer. Okay, previously, and what's in the home rule charter for the county is there's only two officials that county council has a confirmation ability over. That's the county manager and the county solicitor. So the person who is the chief administrative officer over all the departments except for the row offices, and then the solicitor who runs the legal department, right? When, like now, when the county's being sued or any other thing that the county has to handle in a legal matter. So I don't know if it was returned without her signature because there might be a legal issue that the charter does not specifically say that they confirm the chief assessment officer, that that's not going to stand, or she does not agree with it. I don't know, but it is official now, it is law. Let's think what else. There's another proposal that was just introduced in the county council. It's going to go to committee. I don't think it's not had a hearing yet, but it would be state law permits Allegheny County, if there is a court-ordered reassessment only, that homeowners that would meet certain age, length of residence, and income requirements would essentially have their value frozen in a reassessment. It would be based on what happens in the school district. There's some type of formula about the change of value that goes through in your school district, but essentially what would happen is the county would be able to freeze the assessed value of that while there's a reassessment, so long as the qualifications stay in place, meaning if the homeowner qualifies, until they sell the home, then it meets the requirements, they would be frozen at their assessment. I don't know, again, this is just something that's being started. It's been in state law. It's in the second-class county code for Allegheny County. It's been there since the 1950s. They did some amendment to it in 2001, but they've never used it. So that's in addition to, again, now we have the homestead exclusion, the senior citizen relief program that's funded from the RAD tax, and then all the millage rate requirements of revenue neutrality and the index and everything for school districts that are in state law that all came after that. So where that fits into the mix, if it's something that council passes, it's something that the executive decides to sign off on, it's unknown as of now. All this together in terms of data, the way we're measuring it, and the way the county does it is that every January they certify the values. They have what's called the assessment roll, and shows every municipality. It shows residential, commercial value, land, building for every municipality. So when they put the stamp of approval on that January 12th, it was around 85 billion and change, right? I mean, that's what they certified for taxable value. And then there's about another $20 billion in exempt property. Each week we've been tracking it through this thing called a value and parcel count report. It's not certified, but it shows you what has happened in the weeks in between. Somebody wins an appeal, somebody builds a new home, somebody rips down a home, and then it's telling the municipality or the school district, this is what your value is now in this time period, and it comes out every week and it changes. Right now, it's 84 billion and change. So countywide, the values dropped just about 1% from where it was certified at the beginning of January, or the middle part of January. And that again is going to affect what happens with our taxes going forward. And like I said, right now we're going to know, unless you live in Pittsburgh Public School District, what's happening with your school taxes, because they have their Act 1 index. It says how high their taxes can go. They're making their decisions on their budget. They're also thinking about what's going on in Harrisburg with, possible education funding and what that might mean for their budget, what they get from the state. And then in the fall, we'll hear what the county's going to decide, what City of Pittsburgh's going to decide, and what Pittsburgh Public Schools will decide for their budget. So with that, I'll end, and if you have any questions, I'll take them now or wait to the very end. Yes, sir.
Let's say they do go through with the reassessment, and obviously our home values will go up a lot. The commercial properties might go down. What will happen overall to the tax rates at that point?
The question was, what happens overall to the tax rates if we have this jump in residential and a drop in commercial? What happens is when the values are certified after the reassessment, then state law requires all the taxing bodies to start setting their millage rates based on where the new values are. Typically, overall, in aggregate, things are going up. So that means the millage rates then have to fall. The county and the municipality specifically first have to get to a revenue neutral rate that taxes the properties that existed before the reassessment so that they don't take in any more money. Then, if they want to, in that year on the reassessment, they can raise the tax rates. They just have to do it in a separate vote. They have to let you know that this is the revenue neutral rate, and then we're taking another vote now to increase. They can go up to 5% in that vote, or they can go to the Court of Common Pleas and ask for more. And the previous reassessment, the only place that did that was Monroeville. They did the revenue neutral rate, their council passed the higher rate, and then they went to the Court of Common Pleas and asked for an increase, and it was granted. The school districts are a little bit more complex because of the Act 1 index, which is what came out of when the slot machines were legalized, and then there was a thing about tax relief. You could put on your ballot every year if you want to shift more of the tax burden to income taxes. And then you have the possibility of a referendum, or the school district can go to the state and ask for an exception. What they have to do is the school districts then go to their previous year's Act 1 index, and then that's how they're based on what they can take in. So again, there's some element of revenue neutrality. But in that year, if they were saying we got an exception from Harrisburg or the Department of Education to raise our rates, or they said we want to put something on the ballot for the voters to consider, the rates could go up. So does that help? Does that answer your question? Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll turn it over to Frank. There you are.
Thank you. Hard act to follow. He works without a net. I have a net. Because I've got data. I'm a data geek. It's sort of what I do. We talk about the property taxes and assessments because it is the elephant in the room this year. It is something that has come forward that has to be dealt with. I was talking to someone earlier this week who's sort of a political insider, and he says nobody's going to voluntarily do a reassessment. It's going to have to come from the court. Even though they know it's the right thing to do and they have to do it, nobody wants to be responsible. Because when Jim Roddy did it, even though it was court ordered, he took responsibility for it. He was a one-term guy. And so the other two that followed him ran away from that thing like it was, toxic. And that's when they came up with the base system and said, we're just going to go with the base because we don't want to do a reassessment because we like this job. Because Cheryl liked it so much, he did it for 3 terms. And now the young lady, Ms. Cinemorata, that's in there, I've not spoken with her, I've not met her, but I'm betting that she's taking their cue and going to try to run from as best she can. But as Eric's talk mentioned, the school district went not so fast, my friend. We are going to sue you because you need to do this. And my guess is she will do it because originally she ran on a platform of we need to do a reassessment until her opponent said, yeah, I'm not touching it. She went, okay, you won't touch it, I won't touch it, and she wins the election. But the courts are going to make her do it. Now, why is this such an issue? As Eric mentioned, a lot of it has to do with the vacancy rates in downtown Pittsburgh. And that's sort of where I come in. I started following vacancy rates in 2005 because in 2005, downtown Pittsburgh, we call it the Central Business District. That's the Golden Triangle for those of us that live here. Folks in the other part of the world, they just call it Central Business District because every city has one. But that's the Golden Triangle. The vacancy rate in that time period was only 13%. That was really, really good. Matter of fact, we were the second best in the country in 2005 behind Bellevue, Seattle, Washington. So it was really good, but things changed a little bit. In the fourth quarter of 2019, the rate was just 15.9%. Again, that's Class A, trophy buildings, the good stuff. And then, of course, the little thing known as the pandemic. I was talking with our intern about your nice stickers that are still here. The pandemic had a long-lasting effect. It shut downtown like a trap. And people didn't want to go back to the office. They liked staying at home. They liked working from home. And so businesses went, you know what, if you're not going to be here, we don't need all this space. We're going to renegotiate for smaller space. And space becomes available. Now, vacancy rate is space that is not leased. If it's not used but still leased, it's not part of the vacancy rate problem. So right after the pandemic started, there was a lot of unused space, but it was still leased. So the vacancy rate kind of stayed fairly flat for a while. First quarter 2021, it was up to 18.1%, again, Class A space. At the close of 2023, it was 21.1%. And most recently, the first quarter of 2024, it's down to 18.4%. So they're empty. That's sort of the best way of saying it. Now again, the pandemic, the work from home culture is one problem that has to be dealt with. And firms have realized that people are not as productive at home, surprise, surprise, as they would be if they were in the office. And that makes sense. And look, our office never really shut down because, well, first it's just 2 of us. 6 feet apart is real easy to do. He's in his office on one side, I'm in my office on the other side. But you collaborate, you work together, you share ideas. When you think about a workplace, we joke about the water cooler. Well, that's where people would talk. Hey man, I'm really working on this project, but I'm having a hard time. Oh, did you try this? Hey, then I go back and hey, that worked, thank you. When you're working from home, who are you going to talk to? Your dog? I went dog because my wife doesn't listen to me anyway, so the dog at least, well, she knows her, the treat jar's in reach and she doesn't have thumbs, so I'm her guy. But who do you collaborate with? And I've got friends who work from home and they'll tell me the same thing. Oh, I cut my grass today and I weeded and I did this. And well, did you do any work? Well, I'll get it later. And so firms are starting to draw people back into their offices, which is why that rate sort of fell in the first quarter of 2024. They're starting to make it more mandatory back in the office, but employees started pushing back a little bit. And now you've got this hybrid work model where they'll say, okay, I'll come in on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, but give me my Mondays and Fridays off. Or I only want to come in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And so there's still some unused space. And so what firms have done, of course, is sort of stack it. They're community desks where even though, if you're in on Monday, Tuesday, and your buddy comes in Wednesday, Thursday, it's still one desk. And so they haven't quite expanded their footprint yet. The second thing is plaguing downtown Pittsburgh, if you haven't been there in a while, is something called vagrancy and homelessness. Smithfield Street's a mess. If If you walk down Smithfield, it is an absolute mess. I had lunch with a friend of mine in town last week. He said, have you been down 3rd Avenue yet? I said, no. He goes, let's take a drive. It's almost as bad, if not worse, than Smithfield. 3rd's is more of a narrower street, and it's easier to hide and sleep inside coves and door fronts and whatnot. And of course, you're sleeping there, you gotta go to the bathroom. As you reach a certain age, you gotta do the middle of the night. Hey, I'll be right there. And so that's a problem. If you've been downtown, it's not pleasant. You've seen some commercials or some news articles that said, you know, the Fragrasso group was probably the biggest one they left downtown. And he made no bones about it. He would not let his employees come into such a mess that he was moving downtown. Wiener World was the other one. Big fan of Wiener World. He moved. He was on Smithfield. He said he was tired of the needles outside his door. He was tired of his customers being harassed because the church across the street had a bit of a homeless shelter and a soup kitchen. I think they have since closed that one on Smithfield, but he complained and that's the stuff I can tell you because we're being videoed that he was experiencing in his storefront. He moved. He picked his business up. Now, he just moved to the U.S. Steel Tower, but he's inside. So if you want to go to the Wiener World, you have to go inside where he feels a lot safer. If people don't feel safe, they are not coming in downtown. And I know the Downtown Partnership has done a nice job of trying to fix that. And I've seen more police. I've seen police on bicycles and walking around, and that's all great. But I also see tent cities. I came into town yesterday, and right outside the exit from the Parkway onto Grand Street, there's like 4 tents sitting right there in the green space. I had to go, my family lives in east suburbs. I went down the Parkway East along the trail that runs in front of the jail. I couldn't count enough. There's got to be 20, 30 tents right along that trail. And so that's where we are now. And there's been a couple other encampments that they've had to clean out. You know, I talked to a friend who ran the marathon. He says, well, I didn't see any tents. Yeah, it's amazing when they want to clean it up, how they can clean it up. But they moved it. There was a couple on the High River, on the other side of the river. And there was a fire that cleaned out a couple of tents. And then there were some on the Mon Wharf. And when that flooded back in April, those folks lost all their stuff. And so that has to be dealt with. Office workers don't want to go downtown if they don't have to. So piggybacking off of what Eric said, because the vacancy rates are up, because nobody wants to go downtown, the skyscrapers, the value of their property is based on the amount of revenue that they bring in through their rents. No rents, no revenue. They're asking for lower assessments, lower appeals. Again, data. The tower on PNC Plaza. This one's my favorite because it's like 5 years old. The tower on PNC Plaza is very new. It's not the newest. The FNB tower's going up where the old Civic Arena is would be the newest, but it's not open yet. Their assessment value was cut from $147.2 million to $72.3 million, 50% drop. It's a brand new building, down 50%. 3 Gateway Center, and that's right when you come off the Fort Pitt Bridge, that place there. Its assessment went from $462 million to $35 million. U.S. Steel Tower, $233.2 million to $141.5 million. That's our marquee building. It's down. Other buildings are following suit. And so, because they're now getting lower assessments, they're now paying fewer taxes, the school district of Pittsburgh went, wait a minute, we don't have money coming in. And oh, by the way, not only did they win lower assessments for this coming tax year, they won past reductions. The school district owes them refunds. And I mean big refunds. As does the county, as does the city of Pittsburgh, owe refunds. So now they're looking at their surpluses going, oh well. Now by law they're supposed to keep a certain percentage of money in surplus, and they're going to struggle to do that. So they sue, and they sue for a reassessment to go on. You know, this is going to cost the taxing bodies big, and so we go, well, it's the city of Pittsburgh, they reap what they sow, good for them, ha ha, I'm here in Sewickley. Well, again, not so fast, because the suburban areas also have office buildings, and those office buildings are largely empty. Suburban vacancy rates. Now, we talk suburbs, of course, Allegheny County, north, south, east, west. Cranberry and South Point, we kind of left out because, of course, Butler County, Washington County, and there's a little bit of Allegheny in there. In 2019, the total vacancy rate, and this is all class of buildings in the suburbs, was 17.9%. Urban Pittsburgh was 16.1%. By urban Pittsburgh, not just the Golden Triangle, we now bring in Oakland, we bring in the Fringe, which is the Strip District, the north side and the south side. And so in 2021, the suburban rate went to 21.5%. In the first quarter of 2024, the suburban rate's up to 22.4%. Now, what areas are the worst? East, that's my old area, Monroeville. Monroeville has a lot of office buildings. Their vacancy rate is 34.9%. That's a big one. The south is the lowest, 12.9%. The west, where we are, 23.5%. You're the second highest, congratulations. That's Robinson, that's Collier, that's a lot of office buildings in that part of the world. The north's at 18.3%. Again, all class of building. As Eric alluded to earlier, the value of taxable property in Allegheny County has fallen by $1.4 billion, and that's all sources of property values. Of that $1.4 billion, only 570 million is coming from outside the city. 40% of that is from the suburbs, where we are. West Allegheny School District, Pori lost 105 million in commercial value. Montour lost 89 million, and Gateway lost 69 million. Now, when I say commercial, that's both office and retail. Now, we didn't cover retail. It's a little dicier of an issue, but retailers are complaining that thanks to COVID, everybody's buying stuff on Amazon and no one's going to their store, and the value of their buildings is predicated on sales. And their sales are down because everybody's buying online. My favorite, out in the north, is the Pittsburgh Mills Mall. That thing was a cluster from the get-go, right? They gave all kinds of public money. It never really materialized. It was a decent mall for like 2 or 3 years, and then it went to foreclosure, and the bank took it over, and now they're trying to figure it out. And if you go to Pittsburgh Mills Mall now, you can shoot off a howitzer and not hit anybody. There's nobody there. But there are some interior stores, Sam's Club and Walmart, for example. They both have requested and have won large reductions to their assessments. Walmart, Sam's Club, hit Pittsburgh Mills. And the folks out in Fraser going, okay, now we owe you refunds. So retailers, Monroeville's got a lot of big box retailers. Target's asking for reductions as well. Out here in Robinson, there's a lot of big box stores. They're going to be asking for reductions as well, likely to. Whether or not it's a certainty, we don't know yet. So you're winning these assessment appeals at the commercial level, and it's starting to pinch the budgets of your school districts because they are heavily dependent on property taxes. And so they are not getting the money, and of course they owe refunds. Millage rates are likely to rise over the next couple of years because the one thing that school districts will do is will get their money somehow. Whom they get it from, they don't care. If the commercial's not giving it to them, they will look at us in the residential area. We're pushing for a reassessment. We as the Allegheny Institute is pushing for a reassessment for one thing and one thing only: you need certainty. Nobody wants a reassessment because the question came up, well, my value's going to go way up. Well, maybe, maybe not. Depends on where you live, right? Depends on the value of your house and what you've done, how you've taken care of it. I'm from North Braddock. North Braddock has not grown at all. And I know I left and I probably was part of it, but really it's just an old mill town. The mill was probably working at 30% of what it once was when I was a kid. And so it's not growing. Those property values are plummeting. Rankin, Swissville, even along the Ohio River Valley and up along the Allegheny River Valley, those valley towns that were so dependent on mills and people, they're falling in disrepair, they're not growing. Their property values are likely to fall. And those of us that I now live in the South Hills, my neighborhood's growing, much to my chagrin. We're getting new housing developments. All that means is there's just more cars on your road and I can't get around. That's just selfish of me, but chances are those property values are going up. And I'm guessing when there's a reassessment, I'm gonna get clobbered. But it is what it is. You know, the old saying was, then you can sell your house. Well, yeah, maybe. But, you know, it has to happen because we now need the stability, and it gives the school districts an idea of what they need to do. It gives you municipalities an idea of what they need to do in the county so that we can get some certainty to what's going to happen taxation-wise and what we're going to have to pay. You know, and I always tell people that we bitch and complain about property taxes, but we never look at the source of the problem, and that is the folks spending the money. You know, it will go to the city of Pittsburgh. The city of Pittsburgh spends $30,000 a year per student. They once had, when we first started this job, and Eric and I have been around a long time, there was close to 60,000 people in Pittsburgh Public Schools. They're now around, what, 20? They're falling like a rock, but yet their level of expenditures hasn't changed, so they need more money. So 30,000 per student. There's not a whole lot of school districts around here that are too far under 20,000. That's a lot of money per pupil. Now, what you get from it is obviously up to debate. Everybody loves their school district. That's great, but that money's got to come from somewhere. Now, Harrisburg's been sued. The state's been sued for, hey, this is inequitable. You need to come up with a better funding system, and we are looking into that. It has not been resolved. The state had their hearings around the Commonwealth last year of what we can do. And of course, all the school board members showed up, hey, we need more money. We don't care how you get it to us, just get it to us. And we're not sure how that's going to shake out. What is Harrisburg going to come up with as a way to help fund schools? And it's basically the poorer schools with fewer property value, market value parcels that need more, and they're trying to smooth that over so that they get more money. And that seems to be the consensus amongst those hearings is we just need more money. And how that shakes out, we don't know. So now you got a two-pronged approach here that we as taxpayers have to worry about here in Allegheny County. And it's not just Allegheny, Westmoreland, Beaver, Butler, across the state this is going to hit. It's just we're a bigger city, bigger county. We're going to get hit first. And so we asked the question, how's that going to shake out? And then we looked at Harrisburg and go, how's that going to shake out? Where's this money going to come from to educate these children? And I'm not sure the answer to that, but I do know in Allegheny County we're likely looking at tax increase at some point if and when the reassessment happens, and it's more a matter of when than if. And we're hoping that if they do it, let's do this thing every couple of years so that we get used to it and there's certainty. If your memory is long enough, Allegheny County used to do reassessment every 3 years in the 60s and 70s. They would do 1/3 of the county every year. So every 3 years you would roll around, and they knew it. Well, they dumped that in the 70s. The commissioners dumped that in the 70s and went, we're good. Well, we were not good. And now we're kind of paying for it. And so that's sort of the elephant in the room. We really want everyone to know what's going on. We really want this solved because it's coming for us. The vacancy rates, not just in downtown Pittsburgh province, everywhere. Thank you for listening. I'll entertain questions. Mark?
What I'm hearing you say is that when these properties are reassessed, those values are going to go down.
For the commercial buildings, mostly, yes.
But they're going to raise the millage rate. So this is going to be a wash. Right?
Well, the taxing bodies are going to try their best to recoup that money that's lost. And the problem is you're going to see that burden fall in the residential part of the district because we're not going anywhere. And to do a reassessment, and Eric mentioned the common level ratio calculated by the state, you have to go into your assessment appeals process loaded with a lot of information. Most of us don't have the time, the expertise, or the inclination to go and get our home values. You very well could. Anyone in here is welcome to appeal their assessment and is likely to win. Do you have the time to get downtown? Do you have time to get on? You know what I mean? It's a hassle for us. But if you're dropping 50% as a commercial property, you're talking millions of dollars. Now it's worth your time. Now it's worth it. And they've got lawyers at their disposal. They've got consultants at their disposal. And they're sending people down there. But we could all do it if we wanted to. And if we did, then they'd really be in trouble. But then those millages would have to go up to offset it. Now, they are confined. If there is a reassessment, it's supposed to be revenue neutral as a whole. If Sewickley does a reassessment, let's say they collect $100 million this year, after reassessment, they're still supposed to collect $100 million. Now, the individual pieces may have changed. You know, property A may have gone down, property B may have gone up, et cetera. But as a whole, the pie's supposed to be the same. I think there's exceptions for new construction and whatnot, but that's about it.
How about the perennial question of nonprofits?
Perennial question of nonprofits, that was a good one. They don't pay their fair share, God darn it, let's go get them. Let's go get our pitchforks and our torches and run. The problem is that no one mentions is the largest form of nonprofit that's not paying taxes is the government. And when you look at the universities and hospitals, because we all point the fingers at them, when you look at how much they pay in wages, wage taxes and income taxes and all that stuff, and most universities have their own police departments and whatnot, they're not as big a draw on the system as everyone says because they're bringing people into the city. They are bringing people into Oakland to do the restaurants and the bars and whatnot. They have volunteered to do some pilot program. Again, one of my favorites is Governor Shapiro came in at the, I don't know if he was asked by Mayor Gainey, but he came in and negotiated a pilot with UPMC, and UPMC said, fine, we'll pay, we'll give you some money. And Gainey turned it down because he wants UPMC to be unionized. And because that chip was not on the table when Governor Shapiro made the agreement, he said no. Governor Shapiro is not happy with the mayor of Pittsburgh. He expended a lot of capital to make that plan happen, and the mayor said no. So it's likely that if you were to go in good faith to these folks and ask for a pilot, they would give you something. But you know, you have to do it in good faith. And you've got a lot of government properties there that they own property to that's not paying taxes. So in a small community like a Sewickley, or that has a hospital in it, then you have to weigh the benefits of having people come in to use your hospital versus them not paying. And are they really a community asset? Are they treating people free of charge? There's a lot of things you have to ask and weigh in. But pilots are not out of the question. A lot of places do them. And Pittsburgh almost had one. Because of the governor, we almost had one. But because of the mayor, we don't have one. So you can take it from there. Yes, sir.
What's the ballpark cost to do a full reassessment in Allegheny County?
You know that one offhand?
The county had a public hearing in May where they brought in people from Lackawanna County and from other organizations that do reassessments. They, I think, put an average at about $50 to $60 a parcel. In Allegheny County, there's 500,000 parcels. So there you're talking, it's going to be in the tens of millions of dollars, if not more. However, they also said because Allegheny County is highly, at this point, computerized, they don't think they're going to be starting from scratch the way that these other counties have gone for a long time. Like they had people, the chief assessor from Lackawanna County basically described the way they're doing it right now is the way Allegheny County had to do it in 2001, which is bring boxes of papers to be digitized. And they have that all now, so they think it would be quicker. However, like most of these reassessments that are ongoing, so like Juniata County, Mercer County, Lackawanna, Schuylkill, it averages out to about $50 or $60 per parcel.
So that's like 10 million bucks.
It could be more for Allegheny County. I'd have to get out my ciphering machine, and it could be more. But again, I think for the fact that Allegheny County's further along in, we have the website, you can go look up your parcel or anybody else's parcel and see what's there. It might come down a little bit from there.
Yes, sir.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
I don't want to get political, and I don't want to put you in the spot, but I have 4 questions like that. Why are decks on homes taxed as living space?
I have absolutely no idea. That's something that you want to ask your code officer or your assessment officer. That one, I don't know.
I mean, it is part of the property. I mean, it is like an improvement. So it would be part of the structure.
You could have a patio, same size, and that'd be taxed, but as soon as you put a deck a foot off the ground, it's taxed.
Yeah, we analyzed the policy. That's definitely in the weeds. That's not what I'm familiar with.
Okay, the next question. Majority of the people in the room here, I would say, they have children, but they're not living at home, they're not going to school. Okay? Why do we have to burden ourselves for the tax for schools when there's nobody in our household?
One in Ohio, one in South Carolina. I would love to know the answer to that one myself. They picked up and left. The answer that I usually get in response from the education folks is, could you imagine living in a society that's not educated?
And you indicated that the average cost per student is $30,000.
In the city of Pittsburgh, yes.
In the city.
Correct.
Why are we ranked lower than other countries, yet we're paying more money for our education? What is wrong with the system?
Well, I tell you, I can go even further than that. Education to me begins at the home. When you look at the city of Pittsburgh is an awful, awful academic place. As far as rankings go, it's one of the worst in the state, and of course, worst in the nation and worst in the world. But when you have kids whose families don't help them with their homework or make sure they get up and go to school, then the system is going to fail. One of the things that people did not talk about till we brought it up in one of our policy briefs, truancy. Pittsburgh has a tremendously high truant rate. Kids are missing like 18 days a year in school. I didn't miss it. Even if I had a cold, my parents would strap my butt to the bus and send me to school.
Here too.
But you know, when you, and I always say, look, you know, I'm Catholic. I sent my kids to Catholic school. I'm a Catholic school graduate. You know, we invested in their education, but we sat down with them and did homework. I couldn't tell you how many days I sat at the dining room table with my son going over stuff because he was a bit of a slower learner. And so if you don't have that support system as a student, you're just not going to do well. And so I think that, you know, I can say that really is the building block for education, and that building block in our society seems to be lacking. Parents aren't spending the time with their kids, or parents could be older siblings or whatnot, helping them with their homework and making sure they get them to go to school. You're not seeing that too much, and I think that's one of our problems. So I'll take it down to that lower level.
Okay, one other question.
I'm already over 3, so let's get the fourth one.
There's been a lot of talk about busing into different districts and stuff like that.
Okay.
So if you have one student, let's say that's in Allegheny County, and they want to attend a different county, can they do that?
There's a mileage. The state of Pennsylvania has a mileage requirement. I think it's 9 miles from end of school district to end to beginning of school district. I know a friend of mine's on the Southport School Board. He tells me that busing is one of their biggest expenses, because there's a lot of different schools that kids want to attend, or kids need to attend based on their needs of whatever, and they have to pay it. And so I believe it's 9 miles. If the school's within, if you go to Quaker Valley, the end of the line, and go, okay, 9 miles to the next, where that school would be, then you're obligated by Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to pay for it. Hey, I got one. Woo-hoo. Yeah. That's a half. I'll take a half.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
back in the 50s, I think it was the state used to, they were to put in 50% for the school, and the locals would put in 50% of school. Has that even existing anymore?
Every district is different based on their ability to raise money. So we hear that a lot. Well, it should be 50-50. If, for example, the city of Pittsburgh is able to, the school district city of Pittsburgh is able to generate enough money that it could possibly do that. The state gives it the most money. The state gives money on a variety of, and Eric knows this one a lot better than I do, a variety of qualifications, low income, you know, number of parcels that are evaluated, this, that, and the other. And this is the funny part. So the state actually gives more money to the city of Pittsburgh. I think they get like 60%, is it? Somewhere in that range. Wilkinsburg was getting like 80% of their money from the state. Mount Lebanon gets 12.
Moon Township.
I don't know that one off the top of my head. We work in Mount Lebanon. That's low-hanging fruit because they're like the rich area. Quaker Valley probably gets less than that. So if you were to say, let's mandate that 50% goes, all the rich districts are getting a whole lot of money. All the poor districts are going to get less money, and no one's going to go for that. So when they say only 34% statewide, that's because you got rich districts that don't need the money. And so that brings that number down. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, I remember several years ago, there was a discussion that we do away with property taxes, and then there would be an income tax that would go to the state, and the state would dole it all out.
Right.
And the first thing that came to my mind is, shit, it's all going to go to Philadelphia.
Likely.
And so, it's like, I'd rather be taking care of my own and making sure
Yeah.
that it's not going, that I'm giving money that's going.
Right. Well, one of the things with the heavy local funding that we do is we have local control of our school district. My wife and I, we used to live in South Carolina. She worked for the local school district, but she was a state employee. It's a state-run system. And so the state dictated to the school district pretty much everything they were going to do. There's very little local control. We technically have more local control because we're paying more locally. That being said, there's a whole, and you talk to any school district member, school board member, superintendent, unfunded mandates are killing them. They'll get a mandate because the legislature will pass a law that says, well, we want you to feed everybody breakfast. You gonna pay for it? Well, no, you have to pay for it because it's the right thing to do. And so that tends to be a big problem, is the state coming up with these mandates that they're not sending money to the school districts for. And I hear that a lot. I said my best friend's a school board member. I get in here for all the time. Anybody else?
I got one.
Sure.
When I first moved here 25 years ago, going downtown was really a special treat. There's
Yes.
a lot to offer in downtown Pittsburgh. With the policies that have come along the last few years, what do you think the solution is to clean up downtown, per se? I mean, I know people say, well, you can't put them in camps, you can't do this and that. We say we have a homeless problem. I don't believe we have a homeless problem. We have a drug problem in this country. That's what's creating the homeless problem.
Right.
Do you guys look at that as the Institute?
We typically stay away from social issues. Because, and I tell you why, because you're never going to win.
Yeah.
And there's no real data on that. We're data driven.
But we all lose.
We all lose.
In the fact that downtown is
Right.
a bad place.
Right, and that's contributing to the vacancy rate problem, which then contributes to the valuations going down, the tax collections going down. And so the simplest thing is enforce the law. There's actually laws out there against a lot of this stuff. If you were just to enforce it, it would probably, work itself out. Well, there's it. I'm an economist, right? My training's in economics, and the law of economics is price goes down, quantity demand, it goes up. Something gets cheaper, you get more of it. When homelessness becomes cheaper, you get more homeless. I was talking to Mark earlier. I was in Taos, New Mexico, 2021, and if you've ever been, it's freaking gorgeous. I love that part of New Mexico, plazas, and there's a big gazebo in the middle of the plaza loaded with homeless people. Loaded, and they're young folks too. I mean, I'm not talking like us, even with drug. I'm just talking like young college-age kids. You're sitting there going, be in school or get a job, pick one, but do something. And they got dogs, and they got their instruments and everything. And I couldn't figure out why there's so many of them in Taos. Because Taos, if you've been there, is a very small town. Very small town. On the other side of the plaza is a big open public restroom. I mean, it's a nice public restroom. It's got showers and everything. So guess why they're there? The facilities are right across the street. They made it easier for them to be homeless in Taos, and now they got more homeless in Taos. And so I think that may be a problem in a lot of places. If you make it easier for them to be there, they will be there. So how do you fix that? I don't know. The county executive is running out her plan of 500 rooms in 500 days. I'm sorry if I got that mixed up. I apologize to her personally if she asked. Trying to put people in there. And that's a great idea, but then I start to worry and wonder as an economist. I go, but if you make it easier, do you get more of them? Do people go, hey, I can get a room in Allegheny County, I'm going to Allegheny County? I don't know the answer to that. I don't. But we are seeing it as a problem. Every time, and you go into the city, you see the tents. I see people sleeping on the sidewalks. Now, I've not seen needles. I've not seen, it smells bad. It smells like the giraffe enclosure at the Pittsburgh Zoo when you go down Smithfield Street. So, but I've not seen anybody doing it. You know, I took my son down there.
Cisco is the poster
Yes.
child for that stuff. It used to be the jewel of this nation. You know, you go down to Union Square, all the big stores used to be there. It used to be really nice. There's nobody there. It's a ghost town now.
Right. Because once you have the crime, the robberies.
It's the crime. It's the, I mean, when you got to put out a hoop app to tell
Yes.
visitors where the worst of the
Right. Right.
defecation and everything else is,
Right.
there's something wrong.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh hasn't gotten to that point yet, but we're hoping that they don't get there.
We're close.
We're close, but I do know retailers are leaving. My wife knows the manager of CVS in our neck of the woods, who also knows the manager of the CVS downtown, and he thinks they're going to be closing soon because of the theft problem. I mean, they're locking everything up. If you want to buy a toothbrush, you need to get a manager come and unlock to get you a toothbrush, because these folks are walking in and taking stuff and walking out again. There's nothing and they tell their employees, don't stand in their way, don't get hurt. We'd rather lose a toothbrush than have lose an employee. And so until that all, again, it goes back to enforcing the laws.
Yeah.
And the Pittsburgh had the problem of you know, the policing. Policing used to be a noble profession. My father was a cop, and he put his uniform on, shined his shoes, and man, it was great. Now everyone looks down on police as the problem. Nobody wants to be cops anymore. They graduated 15 people in their academy the other day. 15. And they're down, I think, was it down about 100 cops? Graduated 15 from the academy, and I think the next academy's not going to start again next class until like August.
So they've been vilified by a certain group of people in this country.
And nobody wants to be a cop because
I
of
don't
that.
blame them because nobody
Right.
has their back.
Exactly. So the ones that are there are doing the best they can, but it's not enough. Yes, sir?
I would like to say that law and order is, right now, lock them up. And that's certainly a mistake.
Lock them up?
Yeah, lock
Okay.
them up is not a solution. You've got to find some other way to handle that problem.
See, I'd say right now the opposite is true. They're not locking them up.
Well, but that's the trouble. We talk about the law, then we're thinking criminal processing and so on. And locking people up for the length of time that we do and the quality of the prison system that we have is a very poor solution.
Then what is the solution?
That's what you got to think about.
I'm asking you.
Other countries do much better.
No, don't go Sweden. Don't go Sweden. That's
There's much more severe penalties in other countries. I have traveled this all over, and I'll stand toe-to-toe.
This is why we don't do social
There's
issues.
much more severe penalties.
I know there are. I know there are some places.
Yeah, there's accountability.
Yeah, it's a tough problem.
It is.
And not very few countries do a good job of it. There are some that do much better.
How about Singapore?
Singapore. Bring your cane. Bring your own cane.
That's right.
Yes, that being said, thank you all for having us out here.